through the magic of editing, it's a brand new day. It's really not. And I'm going to continue my build of this new Perspectives Music Kit guitar neck that we were doing. So in previous videos, I've shown the whole process from downloading the files to cutting the CNC to gluing them together to putting the frets in and now to finishing the frets. But in this particular case, I am using one of the paddle headstock necks from the kit, not the one that has the pre-cut headstock shape and the pre-drilled holes for tuners. So I need to figure all that stuff out myself. And I'm also, while I'm at it, I'm going to put a nut on this thing. And I'm going to talk about the nut first because I do get a lot of questions about my 0 fret thing, and some people just aren't really don't really get the whole 0 fret, and I'm going to tell you why I love it and why I think you will too. So when you play a normal guitar, like this one, you'll find that more often than not it has a nut up here and a bridge, of course. And so what happens when you're playing, like if you play this open string here right now, the string is vibrating between this nut, which is made of corian on this normal guitar, and this bridge, which is also made of corian on this normal guitar. So that's why that string sounds like that. Now if I close the fret and I play the first fret, now the sound I'm getting is the string ringing between the first metal fret and the corian bridge. So that's why open strings sound different than closed strings. So here's another perfectly normal guitar, this one made from closet doors, and the difference is it has a 0 fret. And so now what that means is when I play my open string, the string is ringing between this metal fret down here and the bridge, which is also corian on this guitar. And if I play the first fret or any other fret, the string is ringing between a metal fret and the bridge. So that means that the open strings are more likely to sound like the closed strings because they're always the same materials reacting where the string is actually making contact. And I feel like those materials are a lot more important than other mystical, magical materials around the guitar, but what the string is actually making contact with and closing. So you can hear that even my closed chord sounds basically the same as my open chord. Whereas with the nut, the chords sound very different. Not to mention this guitar is made of plastic. And then the other reason I prefer it is the setup is a dream, because now what happens is as my string runs from the open position to the bridge, it's actually running from a fret to the bridge. So my distance between frets is all going to work out a lot easier. It's not about carving a nut down and getting it just right. So it's just a little, and then I went too far, I got to start with a new nut. None of that stuff. The nut in this case, the only thing the nut does is it keeps the strings in line as they go across the fret so they don't slide on you when you start playing them. So all this slot has to do here is hold the string in place. It doesn't have to be a perfect fit. You don't have to worry as much about friction or grip or grab or anything. All you have to do is put the string in the right spot and make sure that right spot is just a teeny tiny bit lower than this fret, so the string is always making contact with the fret and not the nut. The nut becomes darn near irrelevant in the setup and sound of the guitar. And you don't have to worry about materials and stuff too. Like me, as a rule, I don't use bone because I'm a vegetarian and I think it's just absolutely disgusting. So I tend to use other materials like hardwood and corian and plastic and stuff for nuts. And they don't always sound that good and they're a little bit trickier to set up. But since I'm doing this today with a 0 fret, it doesn't matter all that much. And I am going to use, this is actually a retread of a nut that I screwed up on another guitar. I'm just using this piece of ebony that I'm going to fit right in there. And you can see I'm still working it down because I'm cleaning up from another guitar that I had messed up on. And I'm gonna fit this piece of ebony in here so it's just about the same height as this fret, just a little bit higher, just so it'll keep the string from sliding back and forth. Then I'm gonna put my slots in so I can run my strings, and Bob's your uncle. Boom, still a little oversized, but that's okay. We're going to take care of that. Now, honestly, I would probably normally do this step when I'm actually setting up the guitar, but I wanted to add it to this video just because it's all sort of related. You might want to wait until your guitar is together to do this, but I'm going to do it for now anyways. And there's a whole bunch of different ways you can line these strings up. There's all sorts of special tools, like this sort of special ruler that you can have. My square rocker actually has this little ruler thing built into it, so if you find the center, which I have a tool to do that, the center square, find the center of your nut mark it. There's just a little tiny gap right there, and I could go and I could count and I could find my 6 strings. I could maybe mark where I want the outside ones, and then I can use this ruler as a slight reference by counting ticks. The way I like to do it is to actually take the actual string and sort of just visually see where I want it to go in relationship to that fret. You could measure, it's like usually like 0.09 inches or whatever, but I like to actually just visually look at it. Like so. Make a little mark. And then here's another handy tool. If you don't know about your fret files, you can buy, I have a video about this where I just bought this mechanics feeler gauge and I made little saws out of them. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just saw that in. Just lightly. Make a mark. The string's a little thicker. Might want to push it a little closer to the inside. Right about there. Looks like I need to go this way. Looks like it's right about there. And this does all the math for me to space them out evenly, which is just a lot easier. Or you can use the tool that I created. But so right now I'm just using this .010 cutter that I have, not the actual string gauge size, and I'm just cutting these marks and just starting them. So I can kind of just visually look at it and go, yep, that looks pretty even. That looks like about what I want. And like I said, normally I would actually have the bridge on, so I would run the string all the way to the bridge and check it out. But I'm winging it right now for this video. If I have to go back and make another one, that's okay, because it's practice, man, you know? So now that I have all these marked, I can take this out and I can start cutting them. Definitely go check out the video I made about this little tool. It is it's super handy and it gets most of your nuts cutting needs taken care of relatively inexpensively. And so like I mentioned, the whole thing with the nut on the 0 fret guitars, it just has to be lower than the nut just has to take the string lower than that first fret, so it doesn't vibrate off the nut, it vibrates off the fret. I'm going to set this up with 10, so I'm going to start by cutting my first slot with this .010 slot cutter, and then the next string in my set is about .013. I'm going to use a .014, close enough, because it's not as crucial as it is on a standard regular nut guitar. And then when we get up to the thicker strings, I do have some proper fret files that I use. Of course, you don't have to buy these. You can figure out some other way to do it. There's even like these little cheap file sets that you can get. Sometimes they're like dollar stores and stuff, and sometimes you can get pretty close with one of these cheap file sets to what you need to do. It's still a little high, so I might actually just take some off the bottom of this. So now you can see the string will come over that 0 fret and go down to the tuner, and you can see it's not stopping at the nut, it's stopping at the fret. Now that I have this all roughed in, I can do some fine tuning on the sanding and make it look pretty. This is my little nut sanding station. Looks pretty good for now, and when I'm satisfied and I have strings on the guitar and I know everything's working okay, I will go ahead and actually just add a little dab of super glue to hold that perfectly in place. But I'm not going to do that just yet. Hey, guess who this video is sponsored by? Absolutely no one but me. So I've been making YouTube videos for a long time, and I usually do not take any sponsors because I just love sharing and doing this stuff, and I have some support over at Patreon and all that stuff. But mostly it's because I sell the things that I'm making. So one of the questions that I get a lot for years now in my comments are people saying that they want to make a guitar but they don't know where to start. I had done a kit a few years ago that was designed just for this purpose, and it was actually pretty successful, but I wanted to change the way I was doing it. It was like a guitar making 101. It had all the parts in a box. You could cut your own body out. put it together. Now we're doing something a little bit different that I'm trying to reach as many levels of makers as possible and levels of tooling. So if you have a CNC in your shop or you're really good at drawing, working from paper plans, I have a whole downloadable file of all the parts that you need to make this guitar. And if you don't want to do that and you just want to actually get the parts and put them together, or maybe you want to make one part but not the other part, I'm selling all those parts a la carte over at newperspectivesmusic.com. So there's something for everyone. And I'm putting out these videos just by me, sponsored by me and nobody else, to show you how to actually use these CNC files, or if you've already got the parts made, how to actually then go ahead and put the guitar together in a little bit more depth and a little bit more insight that I usually put in my sort of more like rock video type builds. So I hope you appreciate it, and if you do, let me know. And if you can support by either going over to patreon.com/TimSway to help support this stuff, or maybe you're interested in making your own guitar and changing your life forever, you can go check out some of those plans and parts that are available at newperspectivesmusic.com. Or I could always just make you a guitar too. I do that too. Be good. But now I need to design a headstock. There's a couple things I wanted to do. I want it to look cool, and I also want to make sure that the strings aren't going too crazy bending trying to reach these things. I want to make them go as nice and straight across this thing as possible. So I'm actually going to use this little thin ruler I have here, and I'm going to line it up. Maybe I do need to put a little glue on there. Here's a piece of tape. The string is going to want to fall if it's going straight off the nut. That just sort of gives me a basic idea of where I want my tuners to fall. These are the tuners I'm going to use. I'm using 3x3s, so there'll be 3 on each side, and I can use my little guide here and I can see I need a hole just a little bit bigger than 3/8 of an inch to hold that sleeve. So I'll go 25/64. Just move around there. This is kind of fun for me because I never do it this way. I always design in the computer. So I'm just sort of figuring out the best way to do this. I grabbed the washers from my tuners and I'm using those to sort of decide. And these two are getting a little close, so I think I want to push these up a little more. And then maybe push this one down a little more. I think I like that. Now I do want to drill those holes to be 25/64, but I'm starting with a smaller drill bit. I don't even know what size it is. And I'm going to drill a pilot hole all the way through first. And the reason I'm doing this is to help with tear out. So now I can run my larger drill bit through from both sides, so I don't have to worry about it when it pops out the back of it, creating some splinters. Of course my camera fell asleep while I was doing that, but so what I did is I drilled a little bit through one side, but not all the way through. And I flipped it over and drilled the rest of the way. And it gave me nice, pretty clean ends here without any tear out. So now we need to create a headstock shape. And really the sky's the limit. The only thing you want to do is you want to make sure you have enough meat on the wood to hold your tuner key, but you also want to make sure your tuner key is far enough away from the edge so you can actually tune it. So you can see, like, obviously that ain't gonna work. So we'll use this one because it's actually pretty perfect right where it is. I like the look of that. I like the distance. We use this as our reference. And we'll measure from the edge about 0.44. It's the same distance. Now with these 3 lines, I'm just going to draw a line. And this is the basic exterior edge I want. Now, I can stray from it a little bit. I can add a little shape and a little finesse. Like, to just do that is kind of boring. But I do want to try to keep those lines kind of nice like that. So I'm going to leave well enough alone there, and I'm going to do all my shape here. I have a basic 3x3 headstock shape I do that looks kind of like that. I'm going to sort of reference that shape in there just by freehand. Little bump, big bump. Maybe I want a little bigger little bump. Okay, I think she's ready to go. I'm going to put some finish on it. I've been real into this stuff lately. This is natural earth paint, eco-friendly varnish, and I like the finish it's giving me. It's really kind of the look that I'm into for my guitars. So I'll let this finish cure overnight, and I'll buff it out a little bit, and it'll be good to go. I might put one more coat on it. I'm not sure yet. But so this neck is good to go. I have the nut made. All I have to do is I have to put some kind of logo up here, put the tuners in, buff out this finish, and it's ready to go get put onto the finished guitar. And next time, we'll start working on that guitar body a little more. That just basically needs to get sanded and finished, and then we'll be able to put the whole thing together. Kind of cool, right? See you then. Be good.